This is the OM System 50-200 F2.8 Pro with versatile zoom range, constant F2.8 aperture. I believe this is a great lens for sports photography. OM System claims the use of high-grade optics, powerful image stabilization, full weather sealing in this lens. I brought this lens to shoot some tennis action and I want to share my experience. Let's do this! As usual, before we start, here are some important disclaimers. I have no connection or affiliation with OM Digital Solutions. This is not my lens. I got it from OM Systems Malaysia, and I have to return this lens to them after making this content. This is not a review of this lens. There are so many reviews available out there already. I don't have enough time to make a full review. I just want to share my experience using this lens, doing some sports photography. Coincidentally, there was the tennis tournament happening last weekend. It was the Kuala Lumpur Open 2025. So I brought this lens together with my OM System OM camera and got some tennis action. Here's some sample photographs from last weekend. Let's talk about the handling of this lens, the OM System 50-200, specifically on the OM System OM1 camera body. This is not a small lens, this is definitely not a light lens. It weighs about 1 kilogram. This is one of the heavier lenses for the Micro Four Thirds system. This lens feels front heavy when you're using it on the OM1. Definitely there was a little bit of imbalance, but nothing too impossible to handle. I used this for about 5 hours shooting duration. At the end of the 4 hours mark, I did start to feel a little bit of discomfort on my wrist and my fingers, but nothing too serious. That is to be expected because this lens has a massive reach. It goes to 200mm and with constant aperture bright f2.8. For such a generous reach and bright aperture, I think this lens is still very compact, it's perfectly manageable. You just have to understand the trade-off and compromise, and for what it is, it's still perfectly usable. The autofocus performance of this 50-200 on the OM1 camera is actually very good. I use the human face and eye tracking together with continuous autofocus on this combination to follow the movement of the tennis players on the court. And I gotta say, it manages to track the movement very well. I got about 60 to 70% keeper rate, and that's quite good. I know a lot of people will expect higher keeper rate, like maybe 80 to 90%, but there are misses there and here, I gotta be entirely honest, but it is good enough. I can make it work. I got good enough shots. I'm very happy with the shots that I've gotten. Talking about the shots that I've missed using the autofocus on this lens, it is not so much of the lens not being able to track the movement or miss the shot entirely, but the issue is that it shows on the screen that the tracking is working, it shows that the focus is working, but when you really look at the images, when you pixel peep and scrutinize, there is that slight misfocus, the slight softness, and that's very annoying because you can't tell when you're shooting when everything's moving so fast. You can't be sure. And you can only be 100% sure when you got home, and that's what caused the keeper rate to be about 60 to 70%. A lot of the shots that I missed, they're not completely missed, they're just slightly missed, and it's really, really annoying. Before we talk about the image quality of this lens, I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone that I'm conducting a street photography workshop here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia next year in 2026. I'll be doing this together with my friends Mati Sulanto and Peter Forsgaard. I'm inviting you to come to Kuala Lumpur to shoot together with me on the streets of Kuala Lumpur. We're going to have so much fun doing shutter therapy together. To find out how to do that, I'll put the link up here, or you can check out the links in the description below. Let's talk about the image quality of this OM System 50-200 F2.8 PRO lens. Images coming out from this lens, they look really sharp, full of fine details, and with very good contrast. The images are already very sharp even if you shoot wide open aperture f2.8. I use f2.8 for most of my shots in this tennis session. And the sharpness is also consistent from edge to edge. I know tennis is not exactly the best place to test sharpness of the lens. I will test this lens again in a different shooting environment to really pixel peep and scrutinize the quality coming out from this lens. When you look at the bokeh rendering from this lens, it is also very good. The autofocus area, it looks pleasing, smooth, it is not distracting, which can create some three-dimensional look, 3D pop. You add some depth to the image, it looks very realistic. The images just look very organic. The rendering coming out from this lens is just beautiful. In terms of technical flow controls, I have nothing much to say. I did not see any visible distortion or vignetting or any chromatic aberration problems. I believe most of these issues are corrected in software, in camera, and it doesn't really matter. I don't care as long as I don't see any of such problems. But I do have to admit that I did not test the lens for flare, as I did not shoot the lens against strong sources of light. I was shooting tennis. I'm not going to point the lens elsewhere, and that test will happen in maybe another video. Here are some important notes worth sharing about my usage of this 50-200 lens on the OM1 shooting the tennis tournament. I was very concerned about battery life, having to move large and heavy glass elements in this lens. This is not a small lens. And the image stabilization was on at all times. The 5-axis sync IS being activated, and I was using the electronic viewfinder instead of the LCD screen from start to finish. Combining all these factors, I expected the battery to finish much faster. I'm very happy to report that a single fully charged battery managed to last me 4 hours continuous non-stop shooting duration, and I managed to squeeze about 5,000 raw images out of that single battery. So I thought that was pretty impressive. And I was using electronic shutter at all times because I want to preserve the mechanical shutter life of this camera. And I was shooting burst, 20 frames per second, burst sequential shoots, because I can't predict the movement of the players. I don't know what's going to happen. It is very fast action. So having the burst sequential shooting 20 frames per second increases my chance of nailing the shots. And I got some shots that I'm pretty happy with. In terms of camera settings, I'm keeping things very, very simple. I use shutter speed priority. The minimum shutter speed is 1/2000 of a second. I use ISO auto. I let the camera decide what ISO is the best for each image. And other than that, I don't think there's anything else to share. I talked about autofocus already. And yeah, pretty much I enjoy using this 50-200 shooting the tennis tournament. I acknowledge that there are some things that I did not test when I used this 50-200 to shoot tennis. I did not use any teleconverters on this lens because without teleconverters, the zoom range was already more than sufficient for me to shoot the tennis game. I did not need any further reach. I also did not test the image stabilization of the lens because it was sunny. We have plenty of light and I was using very fast shutter speeds. That was not the right place to put the image stabilization to test. Rest assured, I'm not skipping any of this. I will test this lens with a teleconverter and I will test the image stabilization in another video. So stay tuned. I will make another video about this lens. All things considered, I personally think that this OM System 50-200 F2.8 Pro is the best lens for sports photography if you're using Micro Four Thirds system. What is there not to like? It offers really versatile zoom range from 50 all the way to 200 that's very flexible, and at 200 telephoto end that's really generous, that's more than enough reach for most sports. Also, you can add teleconverter if that reach is not sufficient. It has bright aperture F2.8, which really helps, and it has built-in image stabilization. I just think that if you do sports photography, if you're shooting with Micro Four Thirds, this is a must-have lens. That's all I have to share about this 50-200. Using it on my OM1 to shoot tennis, I think it works really well. If you found my sharing beneficial, please consider buying me a cup of coffee, or you can contribute directly to my PayPal, or you can join as a member. How to do any of that, you can check out the links in the description below. Any support goes a long way. It will definitely encourage me to share more and create more content here for you guys. Until the next one, please go out and take more photographs. Bye-bye.